So when we're talking about Montessori in the home, people are often asking us, well, what can we do to support our child's experience at the Montessori house? And this is it. That's why we feel like this is so important, because the more that you can kind of mirror this kind of activity at home, the more you're supporting the work that we're doing here. So when we think of nature versus nurture, we're thinking about this theory that, okay, nature is that the children are born with this internal plan of development, and nurture that our environment is either thwarting or supporting that plan. And so as we know, there is a very well-defined plan of development. I mean, a child is not going to start running before they crawl. We've pretty much figured out the stages that they go through, even though that every child will go through those stages at different rates. And I mean, for nurture, when you're either helping them follow their path of development, or you can be an obstacle in that path and make things go awry. So, some of you have little tiny babies and some of you have 5-year-olds. And really, we want to be thinking about all of this as one big process that the children go through during what Montessori called the first plane, which is from 0 to 6. So we all have that in common. We all have a first plane child. And that just means that they are doing very important work, which is brain development, and they are laying the foundation of all the work that they will do from here on out. So their brains are actually functioning in a very unique way during this plane. We have what's called, these are Montessori terms, but she coined the first plane child's mind as being an absorbent mind, which is just like it's taking everything in like a sponge. And that now you can watch on an MRI and see how the brain function is actually completely different than a child that's 6 and up, or adults who we have reasoning minds most of the time. So they're really there's a whole different process that's happening with the children. And they're laying the foundation, like I said, and so that foundation is going to be as strong as the experiences that they have. Concentration is happening when they are obviously very engaged, and that's when the brain development is happening. The synapses are firing, and that foundation is being laid. So the most important thing is that we don't want to be interrupting concentration, but we also want to be providing them lots of means of activity so that they have lots of opportunity to concentrate. So one of the roles of the adult, Montessori talked about respect all the reasonable forms of activity in which the child engages and try to understand them. So if your child is very interested in the activity of turning the knobs on something that you like a lot, like your stereo, unless they're going to break something or hurt themselves, the idea is that you would just kind of observe and see how long that concentration would happen. Something is happening internally that's making that child be very interested in that activity. And when Montessori talked about those things, she called them the sensitive periods, which means that there's certain times in the child's life that they have heightened awareness to specific activities. So if internally the child is developing the sense of touch, they're going to be touching everything, So if we provide them with lots of things to touch, you're giving them such a strong foundation in that sense. And if they're developing hearing, they're going to be noticing every single, sound that goes by, the airplane, the refrigerator, the heater. So that's a sign to you that that's what they're developing. So we want to be giving them lots of experiences of listening to different things with different volumes and, different timbres and all of these things. So we'll go into more things like that. But when you are in the classroom, if you go into any Montessori classroom, as far as the primary level that I teach, you will see that everyone has a pink tower, everyone has a brown stair, everyone has the bead chains. The thing that's unique to each environment is practical life, because practical life is how you care for the environment, and that's different for everybody. And so that's really where you can mirror what we're doing, is in the practical life area. So from the infants who their practical life things are, the basic needs like sleeping. That's why we have the mats on the floor instead of cribs, because we want them to be able to access what they need, which is a soft place to lay down when they're feeling tired. And eating and drinking and toileting are all crucial pieces of all of the care, but especially in the infant room. Then as the toddlers, they start to be more independent and they start to be able to, get their own activities. So any activity that we want to set up for the children when we want to foster independence, we want them to be able to do what we call the 3-part work cycle, which means they can get everything they need, they can take it somewhere, they can do the activity for as long as they want, they can clean it up, and they can put it back. So that requires a lot of order. They need to know where the things go and how it works. So that will require some instruction from you. And then beautiful, we want the materials to be calling to the child and engage with me, because we want them to have constant, meaningful interactions. And sometimes that's with us, but a lot of times that's with the environment. That's why the teachers are called guides in Montessori, because it's meant to be that we're guiding them to meaningful activity in the environment. And our most important work is to prepare the environment so that when we notice that there's something happening within the child or there's a specific interest, that we can say, oh, follow me. I'm going to show you this thing on the shelf, and it's going to light up your life. You're going to be very interested. So these are some things that are in the Meadowlark room in Practical Life. So these are mainly 2-year-olds. And this is just showing you some setups that they have. So here is how they have their dishes. And obviously, the most important thing is that they can reach it. So if you're wanting them to be able to get their own plate, then you need to have it in a place that they can reach. That's that child-sized piece. And then here they have placemats that have the fork and the plate and a spoon and like a little circle for the cup. So that tells the child exactly where to put the things to set the table. In my room, we have the exact same placemats, but there's no direction. So as they gain a skill, you don't need to offer that accommodation anymore. You can just remove it and let them still be independent with the same process. This down here is egg slicing gate. So, it's all very beautiful. It matches. It's all yellow. And then they have a cup where they put the egg, and then they shell it, right? They have a cup that they can put the shell in. They slice it, and then they have a cup that they can actually put the part that they're going to eat in. So over here, this is their dishwashing station. It's so fancy. So this was Laura's husband Seth made this little stand, so just the 2 tubs fit in, soapy water in one and clear rinse water in the other. So all the materials they need are on this tray. There's a little thing of soap. If you want your child to use a whole thing of soap, put the whole thing of soap here. So you only want to put out like as much as they are going to use or how much you want them to use. And we show them 2 drops, but they're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And then the brush, and there's a little bucket, and this is the pitcher that they get to put their water, they fetch the water and pour it in. And then once it's all set up, this moves to the back, and then as the children are eating snack or lunch, then they carry it over, and this becomes the dirty dish tray. And then they wash it, and then they rinse it, and then it goes into the drying rack. So it's very practical and orderly and beautiful. And child size, they can carry this pitcher full of water. You don't want to give them such a giant thing that they can't actually support it themselves. This one down here is banana slicing, which the children have banana most days, as you might notice if you are a Meadowlark child. And that's because they are actually preparing their own snack. So they're really focusing on that right now, and then I'm sure it will be another food prep, later on. But they have a place where they can peel the banana, put the banana, or actually this is the part that they are eating, right? So this is the compost bucket here. And they have a slicer that they can do it, And I mean, this whole thing is just kind of thinking about the process that they're going to go through and providing them something to do it with. It doesn't have to be exactly the slicer or, whatever you actually use at home is what you should provide. So next I have a slide of them actually doing some of these things. So this is the dishwashing station in my room, not nearly as beautiful, but just equally as functional. We just have the same 2 tubs, but they're on top of a table. And there's a little table here where they put their dirty dishes, and the same kind of progression. So here Freddie is eating his lunch. Look, his cup's on the circle, and he's still eating, and then Sophie's in the background doing the dishes. And then this just shows, I just thought that was a cute shot of them both putting their shoes on independently and on the little bench that they can sit comfortably and reach their shoes so that they can do it. You need a lot of patience, if you're trying to go out the door and you need to be somewhere in 10 minutes, then you're probably not going to be letting the child, take all their time to put their shoes on. But if you do have time, then, you want to provide them as much time as possible because they are able to do it. So when we're thinking about how to mimic these kind of activities at home, then we're really going to be thinking about the activities that you do in each room, and thinking about, well, what do we do in this room? And you can be thinking of it as an adult. Ultimately, we're wanting our children to grow up to be functional adults. So what you're doing in the room is equally as important as what the child is doing, and they're wanting to do all the things that you're doing, So if I'm thinking about the living room, I can think about, care of self. What do I do in my living room? Well, in my living room, that's where our front door is. So when we walk in, that's where the dump happens, So is there a place for everyone to put their jackets? We have a really nice, beautiful, functional coat tree thing, which is great for my husband and me, but my kids can't reach to put their things there. So we have a low hook stands where they can reach to hang up their coats. And even a further accommodation for Cairo, who is 2, he can't really get his hood to stay on the hook. So you can put like a piece of string through the tag so that they're just putting the string over the hook. So they can put their jackets away independently. And if I see that it's on the floor, I can just remind them that it can go over there. It's not that I never see it on the floor, but there is a place for it, and for their shoes and for their backpacks and all of their gear. But then, and I can also think about, in the family room, there's a lot of, we read a lot, so they each have like their own little book containers, and you want to keep it kind of limited. You don't need to have every book that you own out all the time. It's better for them if they have a limited amount of things so that they can really, really use it. You don't need to have Legos and blocks and Duplo, whatever those things are. Even if you have all of them, maybe you just have one out for a while, and then they'll really get good at it. They'll get really creative at using that kind of block. And then when they're kind of not playing with that anymore, you can take that out and rotate your Legos, and then they'll really get good at that, and then they won't be interested anymore, and then you can put the Duplos out. And then eventually, when they're older, you can combine them, and you'll get much cooler things because they've really worked with each one independently so that they're ready to kind of mix them together. So, a little area where you have a few activities out that are very simple. And then you can also be thinking of the care of the environment. So how are you taking care of that area where we walk in and do the dump? We need to sweep that area because it's not, we have a handheld vac that Cairo can use. But, and like windows, they can watch the windows. And so there's the care of self, which is kind of like, what do you do in this space? And then the care of the environment is like, how do we, maintain the space? How do we keep it clean? And how do we take care of it? So when you think of each room in your home, think about 2 things, care of self and care of the environment. With care of self, think about what activities you and your children are doing in the room and how you can set it up so that it's simple and all-inclusive. This piece also leads into care of environment because the child should be able to put everything away independently. For care of environment, think about what needs to be done, like putting things away, dusting, or window washing. Every room has its own needs. I encourage you to look at each room in your house and think of at least one way that you can prepare the environment. For ideas, you can watch the breakout discussions that we use to brainstorm ideas for the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Montessori in the home. I hope you enjoy watching your child thrive.